Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Yarns with Andy. We're going to jump into a very interesting topic today, and it's all about data centers. AWS have committed $7.5 billion into the data center infrastructure in New Zealand. Microsoft are here. They're building a couple of data centers. They're doing amazing things. DataGrid in Southland building a 280 megawatt data center, and it is expected that the amount of data center power consumption is going to exceed 600 megawatts. Megawatts in the next 10 years. To delve into all of that, welcome, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, mate. Thank you for making the time for being here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I guess a pretty long story for me. I've been part of the data center industry for about 20 years now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Kiwi kid, more or less, with a British...
I hear you're a boy from Whangarei.
I'm a boy from Whangarei. I grew up there. I was actually born in the UK, so I've had a fair bit of experience living and working over there using my passport. But yeah, I'm a Kiwi kid who grew up in a small town.
Yeah.
And accidentally found this crazy industry to be involved in.
How? How'd you get into it?
Well, I was on my OE, believe it or not, living in the UK, and a friend of mine was working for a tech company. Now, I'm not a tech guy. Well, I suppose I am now, but I wasn't a tech guy at the time, and he got me an introduction to a company that worked in the IT space. They were a cloud computing company, the same as Amazon, Microsoft were, and they had some data centers very early in the day, and I ended up working in one of them, taking servers out of boxes, putting them on shelves and getting them ready to go into racks, which became the cloud.
Interesting.
And I've kind of been part of data centers ever since. So
enjoy it? Love it?
Probably a little bit too much. Yeah, I really do. It's been a fascinating 20 years to kind of watch the changes in the industry, see what's happened over that time, experience some things that, most little kids growing up in Whangarei probably would never experience in their lives. So, I love it. I've been lucky enough to get a lot of opportunity from being in the industry, and now I'm in a very fortunate position to have sort of started up my own organisation, trying to help others come into the industry as well. And
so you came back from the UK and you ran Datacom for a while. And then you moved into your own consulting business now, haven't you?
Yeah, more or less. I was a senior leader in that Datacom business, in the data center business there for 12 years. I was part of that organisation.
Wow. All
of it in the data center business, the data center piece of that company. Prior to that, I'd had that 7 years working in the UK in tech.
Nice.
And, that's sort of given me the ability to come out of that, if you like, 20-year kind of corporate career.
Yeah.
And
what you've done is you've built that muscle memory for everything data center, haven't you?
More or less. And I've been lucky enough to be quite well connected in the industry, both in New Zealand but also across Australia, APAC more broadly, and even people I remember and know from back in the UK 20 years ago. So it's kind of given me as much of a grounding as you can get in an industry that moves so fast.
Yes, and we're going to delve into that quite deeply now, aren't we?
Well, hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get into it. But before all of that, for everybody listening, what's a data center? Layman's terms. Keep it simple.
It's a giant hotel for IT equipment.
It's a giant hotel for IT equipment. That's one way of putting it.
It's not. It's in reality, it's not really anything much more than that.
It's a cold shell. You've got some piles. You've got a slab on the floor, and you've got racks.
Pretty much
with cables.
Lots of racks, lots of cables, lots of power, lots of cooling, lots of technology involved. But the technology of a data center is really on the IT and deployment side, which is generally quite separate to the building side of it. There are two aspects to what a data center might be. You mentioned earlier Amazon and their investment in New Zealand, Microsoft as well. There are others that are probably coming. They will generally deploy the IT equipment, the racks that actually do the work that create an outcome for people. But that's quite separate to the person who might build the data center, might build the physical building in which those racks reside.
The core shell itself.
The core shell, the powered shell, the hotel.
Yeah, the hotel.
I like that analogy because it makes it nice and simple. The data center is the hotel. The clouds or the other IT tenants, they are the people staying in that hotel. And they might rent a room, or they might rent a floor, or they might rent the entire hotel potentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, a data center is a hotel for IT equipment, nothing much more.
Yeah, that's
In its simplest form.
without any windows.
Sometimes we put windows where the people sit.
Oh, where the people sit.
There
Yeah,
are some
not for the
people,
racks.
there are some
Yeah.
people involved in running data centers.
Yeah, that's probably in a room, and in the corner you'd have some windows, and just in that room.
Yeah, you do often find the kind of people that work on a night shift prefer not to have windows,
Fair enough,
to
mate.
be honest. But
You're talking about people like me,
Yeah.
perfectly nocturnal.
exactly. There are a lot of those
Yeah,
in
I'm
our
perfectly
industry.
nocturnal, mate. I wind down all the blinds, and the only thing that's lit up is my screen and my keyboard. Oh, perfect working
I'll
environment.
tell you what, have I got the career for you?
Do you? In data centers?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a perfect career, mate. Like, I can't imagine doing anything different than what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, fair enough. And I've become the same, actually. Like
Yeah.
I landed in this completely accidentally. Prior to getting that job in tech in the UK, I used to grow plants for a living and worked on a deer farm, and dropped out of university to do those two things. So,
Yeah, nice.
and
here you are running data centers in 2 different countries, a boy from Whangarei.
it's and I think it comes down to really quite simply just taking opportunities that have presented themselves,
Yeah.
and using the things that I've known from other roles I've had, other work that I've done, other things that I was taught when I grew up,
Yeah.
and bringing those with me and making them part of my kind of, what I do every day
Yeah.
in an industry that I never imagined would even exist, let alone that I'd be part of. So,
And this is the future as well, isn't it? This is absolutely the future. Given the amount of money that's been poured into the country, it's phenomenal investment from overseas. It's crazy. But, yeah, go on.
well, I was just going to say, it's probably best not to get into the debate about how much money is being poured into it. Politicians,
Look at the quantum. It is a lot.
politicians made that mistake and got confused a couple of months ago. But
Tell me more.
the debate about $7.5 billion being invested by Amazon,
Yeah.
and where exactly it was going and where it was coming from and over what time period it was. There was some controversy with the Prime Minister getting confused about that. But
Oh, really? So Christopher Luxon got confused about that.
I believe so.
Interesting.
But in reality, it is confusing. Because
it could be because $7.5 billion could be over the next 20 years.
it could be, and some
Who
of
knows?
that money may be direct investment, some of it may be indirect investment. But the reality is, and this is why I say it's not worth getting into that debate, the reality is it is value coming into New Zealand.
Agreed.
One way or another, it is building something, it is employing people, and it's not the only money coming through data centers either. Amazon is one investor in this space, and there are plenty of others that are coming this way, whether we realise it yet or not.
Yeah. Yeah, there's quite a lot of money, and we need data centers, right? But before we dig into that, right, let's dig into why a builder should care about building data centers. What does it mean to them? Like you said, there's 2 separate entities. There's a technology, park that aside, and there's the core shell, right? The core shell's a very important part of that, right?
It's absolutely fundamental. Look, from what it does in effect is deliver power to the IT systems. The space and the cooling and things like that, they're all there as well. That's important. But you have this giant building that needs to be built to incredibly exacting standards, right? More so than your average, commercial or residential building probably.
And some of the specifics could be your floor has to be perfectly level.
Has to be level, has to support a certain load, has to be, long span roofing, whatever it might be. Lots of protection systems mostly, because that's what the data center is there to do. It's to maintain uptime for the tenant of that data center, right? So it has to be reliable. It has to be, really well put together, and fault tolerant is the sort of usual term, right? So, why should a builder care about data centers? Well, because they're coming. They need to be built, and they need to be built.
Somebody needs to build them.
Somebody needs to build them. There are jobs available in that space. And I was at a conference about 3 or 4 weeks ago and saw a presentation from someone talking about the quantum of data center builds in Australia over the next 5 years versus the last 5 years. And it's going to be going up by about 300%.
Yeah, right.
So everything that was built in data centers over the last 5 years, 300% of that being built over the next 5. By contrast, office buildings and office refits were going from negative 30%, so far less kind of activity in that space.
Yeah.
Data centers are, I'm not going to say like the next big thing, although perhaps they are, but there's a huge amount of work in that space that's available to people.
And the AI bubble has a lot to do with that as well, doesn't it?
Is it a bubble? That's a different debate. I personally...
maybe I should probably rephrase that. A bubble would burst. I don't think this is going anywhere.
And I'm probably not the right...
The AI revolution, sorry?
Yeah, look, AI is, and more specifically, the GPU-based technology that is enabling AI to be used in the way it is today is creating the opportunity for us to really completely rethink the way we use IT equipment and the things that we do with it. It creates a whole new set of technologies we can use to build different products on. But this is all happening at a tenancy level in that data center scenario, right? So it's the tenants of building new products. Now, some of them will fail. Some of them will bubble. But the underlying infrastructure that is the data center that must be built and that creates jobs in the construction and maintenance industries is still going to be there.
100%. Because there's common misconception in this whole industry where people go, oh, because of this AI revolution that's happening, we need more data centers. And because of data centers, we need more cooling. Because of that, we need more water. This is an unsustainable way forward. But I'm going, even without the AI revolution, you'd still need the data centers. You tap your phone, you access your phone, you access your banking on your phone. You're not really using AI, but you're still accessing a data center, information from a data center.
And absolutely everything we do today. Like I use Google Maps on my phone to get here. And I think there's this real misconception with everyday users that happens on my phone. It doesn't. The phone is just an interface.
That's it.
Right? It sends a signal to a system in a data center, and that system in the data center fires up and tells me whether to turn left or right.
Yeah.
Right? It's an AI just expands what that can be used for. It allows you to have a self-driving car rather than just a series of directions being delivered to me. Right? It can actually do the thing for me rather than telling me to turn left.
100%. Like I read a quote just recently. Apparently data is way more valuable than oil.
I wouldn't refute that for a second. I mean, data
is way more valuable than oil today. And I think the war today has actually proven that fact, that data is way more valuable than oil right now. Yeah, our oil prices are going up, but you look at how people are waging war against one another, America and Iran. Everybody's using Anthropic systems to actually gather intel and process intel.
Yeah, well, everybody will be using some form of data system, whoever provides it.
Artificial intelligence.
Yeah, all of that is kind of enabled by that infrastructure layer. And I mean, I wouldn't want to debate who's using it for what and why.
Sure.
As I said, at that product level, some things will be useful and others will not. I mean, I love personally the idea of the democratization of access to health and even mental health services, things like that. If you can use AI or use those systems to make them available to people in places that you can't today because you can't get a physical doctor to them. I mean, I think that's fantastic, and the systems in the background kind of enable that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there will be some products that are built and fail, like in any industry.
Sure.
But then another product will come along and use that same underlying kind of GPU infrastructure system. And in order to house all of that, we've got to build more buildings. It's kind of that simple.
More hotels.
And those hotels will get bigger.
Yep.
Historically, we've had quite small data centres in New Zealand, 10 megawatts going up to 100 in a couple of cases. Data Grid in the South Island is changing that.
It's a 280 megawatt data centre that they're building, isn't it?
And I believe the intent is to make it larger, longer term. I mean, if you can find a tenant for it, why wouldn't you?
So just in terms of scale, right? When you're saying it's a 280 megawatt data centre, how big are we talking this data centre is? Like, let's talk in terms of football fields.
It depends really what you define as the data center. This is where it gets difficult.
Yeah, so you've got your data racks and you've got your entire equipments that actually feed it, which is your AHUs, your transformers, whatever, all your generators. You got all of this equipment that power the data center. I'm talking, how many buildings are we talking? Is a 280 megawatt data center?
Well,
estimate.
It could be quite large, but let me give you another point of reference
Okay,
for
cool.
it. Okay, so when I started 20 years ago,
Yes.
we're sitting at a table here. This table's sort of about 1.5 meters long by about 1 meter wide.
Mm-hmm.
That's roughly the footprint of one rack. Okay,
This
so
table? Yeah.
one rack would sit on that. When I started in data centers, through that one rack, you might pump roughly 2 kilowatts of power. Okay, so
Yeah, okay.
1,000 racks, 100 racks is a 200 kilowatt data center.
Yeah.
1,000 racks, do the maths. Now, in some of these new racks, the AI liquid-cooled racks, this table, one rack, would potentially consume 1 megawatt of power.
Oh, wow.
Right? So
Sure.
so now you've got, instead of 1,000 rack data center at 2 kilowatts, a rack consuming, 2 megawatts, you've got 2 megawatts in the space roughly that we're sitting in.
So it's smaller racks consuming more power because of the GPUs.
Much, much smaller racks, much, much smaller IT space, but a massively expanded kind of peripheral space. So more generators, more chillers, more cooling.
Yes.
So the actual size of a data center really kind of relates to its electrical capacity, but doesn't change,
Physical size.
in physical size, right? So you still, if you have fewer racks producing higher density kind of workloads, you still need just as many generators, just as many chillers, just as many cooling and backup systems, just as much room for people. So there's the same level of building to be done,
Yeah.
just for a different purpose now. Some of that can be done a little more simply. You can use containers and
That's the thing, right? So
gantries.
that technology, that construction technology is changing as well. So they're containerizing everything. So it's just plug and play these days now.
Yeah, and
Is that the new technology that's coming into play, which is going to fast track data center builds?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's new, but modularization in
Yeah.
data centers and sort of pre-building, having things ready to be shipped to site or to wherever energy is, more importantly, is pretty common these days. And
Yeah.
from a construction perspective, it allows you to move faster, do more projects, and potentially build bigger sites much more quickly.
Has New Zealand had any uptake in that whole modularization of all the equipment that's ready to be plugged into a data center?
I think I've seen it here mostly being used by sort of individual enterprises that
Yeah,
are
right.
needing on-premise compute equipment. They might truck in a container, have that container sort of deployed at their site and have 2 or 3 racks in it. So that kind of thing. We haven't really done it here that I'm aware of anyway at a large scale for a large format commercial facility.
Yeah.
But you always do an element of that. You very rarely build the whole data center on day one.
Yeah.
You build the section of it that matches your end client or tenant demand, and then there's another project
The
to
person
build
that
out.
wants to rent the hotel.
Yeah, the person who wants to rent the first hotel room, and then you build the next hotel room and the next one and the next one.
Yeah.
So a data center is really never fully built. And this, again, from a construction perspective, this is quite good because there is ongoing work and ongoing opportunity at those sites as they go from 10 megawatts on day one to 20 to 50 to 80. You've got to build out more capacity, more buildings, more spaces for people and for equipment.
But that in itself comes in its own construction challenges then, doesn't it? Because now you got to actually figure out how you're going to tag on the next data center to the existing data center without any disruptions.
It does, right?
Design, construction, challenges, people movement, material movement, fuck, you name it.
That kind of thing is what keeps us data center people up at night.
It keeps me up at night because as strategic planning, all we do is we do methodology and we write programs for. And we've been involved in a few data centers here, overseas, and those builds have always been, for obvious reasons I can't name them, exactly for the same reasons you can't name them, the crazy confidentiality agreements you sign.
Yeah.
But that's always been the case though, you're right. So you build a first hotel, house the tenant, then you build the next hotel, house the next tenant. But it's really, really challenging when it comes to the methodology of how the design works for that first hotel to be built and to add on the second hotel. Because that's not typically how you'd build a building. Think about it, right?
No.
If you're building commercial bay, right, you wouldn't say, I'm going to build part of commercial bay or the first 20 floors of commercial bay and get tenants in there while I build the other 20 floors of commercial bay.
No, well, I guess you could, but you wouldn't want to, would you? It'd be
wouldn't
terrible.
want to. But that's what's being demanded of the data center world, right?
Well, and on top of that, when you're doing that, a data center has zero tolerance for downtime.
Yes.
There's no opportunity to build in, we'll just turn you off for a couple of hours. There's so much that goes into designing and building a site to prevent downtime that it's almost intolerable, and it's intolerable to the clients as well. And
of course, the tenants are mostly international tenants, aren't they?
Well, if you take it a step further, the tenants are you and I. Right, we always want to be able to read the news. We always want to be able to check the weather.
Yeah.
That's what data centers and their tenants are actually delivering. So it's really us saying, I need to have that service available to me 24/7. I need to be able to check my bank account in the middle of the night to make sure I got paid.
Yeah.
I need to be able to check what to wear tomorrow morning. I need to be able to check the traffic before I leave for work in the morning.
Yeah.
All those things are delivered by data centers via the tenants of the data centers to you and I.
Mm-hmm. Interesting, yeah.
So it's kind of like...
So we're creating that demand as human beings.
We are absolutely creating that demand. And the things...
And we're accustomed to a way of life where opening up your phone and opening up Google Maps is just natural. It's just like, and if that service is unavailable to you now, mate, I'd actually be angry.
Well, you kind of are, right? You
yeah.
You think, why isn't that there for me? And that's what the data center industry has kind of built the way in which it operates around, right? It is that always up, always on, always available kind of 24/7 industry. I said to you before the podcast, my phone's been switched on 24/7 for the last 20 years.
Yeah.
Because you have to always be able to respond to an event, do something, fix something. Those are services that are being delivered for you and I to be able to use day in, day out, night and day. And every data center is doing that one way or another, whether it's commercial facility or your own enterprise facility that you own. And really, I guess, going back to it, it is just you and I that are creating that demand, though, by that little bit of anger when Google Maps doesn't work. That kind of gets reflected back in the data centers and the way that they operate and the way that they buy services and the way that they deliver those services. So
Interesting.
It's very much driven by people using those services.
Yeah. So for all you people listening out there, you are driving the demand for the data centers.
Yeah, and
interesting.
And I think from my perspective, just I'm really interested in that kind of dynamic, and I know, I've seen it kind of change over the years. Even you just look at the change between a Google search for something, which is effectively just we might type the same thing in on our phone. Please tell me what the weather's going to be like. Sure. And, in an old Google search, it just goes to a weather website, it looks it up, it tells you. When you start using AI for that, it does a lot more complex set of transactions in the background, uses more energy in the data center, delivers you potentially a better answer. If you then skip forward a bit to generative AI, let's say we're not checking the weather, but we're saying, hey, tell me what the weather's like and give me an image of what it looks like outside my window.
And tell me if I can go play golf.
Yeah. Now, generative AI can do that.
Yeah, 100%.
But it will use a lot more energy in a data center, either directly or indirectly. And
because it's querying a lot more different sources and it's putting together custom information for you.
Absolutely.
As a user. And your Gen AI also understands you as a user, which then goes, I need to cater to Andy or I need to cater to Andrew. And I know this is Andrew's preference, which I need to now cater to, which then I do these complex calculations to then.
Yeah. Yeah. So in the background, it's doing a lot more to deliver you a far richer answer. But I think the disconnect really is that for you or I, it's still typing in the same 20 words in our phone. And as individuals, it looks like we're doing the same thing. It looks like we're using the same amount of energy. But in reality, we're not. And I'm not wanting to sort of take away from what data centers are doing. It's just actually we expect a richer answer now than we did 20 years ago.
And that's the new norm, though.
And it's normal.
Yeah. It's 100% the new norm. Like I don't do Google searches anymore. And again, I don't type into my my Claude or my ChatGPT. I now talk. That's even worse.
Yeah, even more. Again, it's
now it's converting speech to text. Text has then been processed all the way into now meaningful information that I expect every single time delivered to me.
Yeah, and that's really, there's this, I think, view that data centers are kind of doing something for themselves, and they're not. They're doing the things that we ask them to. in the ways that we are now accustomed to working, because those products are being delivered to us differently.
And now it's even worse because we've gone from Gen AI to agentic AI. So, so what does all this mean for the power consumption in New Zealand? We're pretty much tapped out when it comes to power. That's the general consensus. I don't have exact statistics on how much power we consume and how much we generate and what the usage is, but the general consensus is we don't have enough power to keep building more data centers. So what does that mean? How do we deal with this issue?
Well, there are some interesting stats that I've seen. I don't have the whole set of it on me, but there was a report written last year by NZ Tech, a sort of industry body that deals with a lot of the tech industry in New Zealand. And I think at the time data centres was actually only about 0.6% of national energy consumption.
Okay.
It's not nearly as much as it seems. And that same report sort of had information around the expected growth of data centres, and I think we've got probably about 200 megawatts roughly of installed base load today, plus or minus a bit.
And the expected is it's going to go to 600 megawatts required in another 10 years, give or take.
Probably sooner than that, I suspect.
Sooner than that, you reckon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, look, if you look at DataGrid in the South Island, they're building a 200 megawatt data centre. In all likelihood, that will be one or two tenants that take most of that capacity in one go, potentially.
Literally, two tenants will take up all of that 280 megawatts.
Potentially.
Lucky no.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what they'll be hoping anyway. But
that's a lot, eh?
But even that, if nothing else changed, only takes us from sort of 0.6 to maybe 1.5% of New Zealand's energy use, right? It's not a big user of energy actually in the way that we perceive it.
But the perception is it's a massive energy user.
But they are very dense, very high-powered sites. We're not building a massive factory with 1,000 people working in it to use that 200 megawatts. We're building probably now, if you think about the density of a rack, a relatively small set of racks with a lot of building and technology around them. And they just look a bit different to what we're used to. But the economic value is still absolutely there because they employ people outside of that space.
Yeah. So do you think New Zealand has that kind of vision that you're talking about? General New Zealanders? I know it's a controversial question. I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, put me on the spot with that one. I think New Zealand has that capability.
I 100% believe so, yeah.
And I don't know if we have that vision, and I haven't kind of seen it in action in the industry. The industry is a little bit behind our sort of APAC neighbours. We do have a bit of a structural problem at times here. The size of the country is a bit smaller than other sort of competitors, and you got to remember in that IT and data center space, we're now not just competing with each other within New Zealand, we're competing globally, right? Why would you put a data center in New Zealand to serve the world rather than one in Australia?
Why?
Well, at the moment,
why do AWS and Microsoft want to come here? We are in the corner of the world.
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Those my sort of assessment of that is those original workloads that have come here are to serve New Zealand needs, right? So rather than having Microsoft or Amazon deployed in Australia and us consuming services from there, which requires a lot of network cost and a lot of bandwidth across the ocean, they're putting a small version of it here so that we can just use it locally.
Why do they care about 5 million people when they can cater to 50 million people in America or 20 million people in Australia?
I mean, I'm probably not the right person to answer that, to be honest.
Sorry, I'm just shooting from the hip here. But these are questions I have.
But it's a market. There are 5 million people here that use those IT products. We use email, we use Google, we use Microsoft's tools, we use
Amazon Prime, watch videos, and Netflix. And
exactly.
whatnot, yeah.
All of those products that they own and create, rather than deploying them overseas and us using them from here, which, it means we get the product more slowly. Latency is a thing. Data has to travel. Takes a while. If you deploy it here, then we get better access to it. Maybe we're more likely to buy their product or pay for it rather than somebody else's. So, it's just a business model. Can you support your deployment on 5 million people? Probably.
Yeah. You need data centers.
Yeah.
You need to be tenant in a hotel for that. Right?
That's right. Yeah. And you're probably not going to build your own 100 megawatt data center in that scenario. You need a smaller deployment. That's one model for why you would come here, is to serve the needs of the New Zealand population. The other one, which is what we're looking at with those really big hyperscale data centres, is actually that the data centre is not there to serve the New Zealand population at all. It's there to do something that can be sold or delivered globally, whatever that might be. Right, so I quite like self-driving cars as an analogy. You and I might have a small deployment to tell our self-driving car what to do when it's driving around Auckland, and that
Sure.
needs to be really close to us because
Yep.
we don't want to wait for an answer.
Yeah, the latency issue. Yep.
Yeah, but the actual training of that algorithm and the training of that system could be done anywhere in the world
Correct.
because it's not connecting to you and I while we're using it. It can be done anywhere. And so we've got to find a product in that could be trained in the New Zealand market to use those big high density facilities. And so that then comes down to price. Can we do it more cheaply here than you could do in Sydney? Maybe it comes down to sustainability. Maybe it comes down to simple availability. Do we have the capacity to do that today, yes or no? Availability is often king.
100%, yeah. Because if you don't have the availability of land and the capability of people to deploy the core and the capability of the people to then run those data centers and deploy that technology, why would you come here? Interesting.
Yeah, and now...
You got me thinking now.
Oh, I didn't mean to.
No, it's good. It's really good. It's really, really good. I want to loop back just a little bit. You said hyperscale data centers. I know what that means, but let's explain to everybody what a hyperscale data center is.
It's sort of a bit of a catch-all phrase that gets
I know,
bounced around a lot these days.
All the time.
And it's changed over time. I mean, when I started in the industry, hyperscale as a concept didn't really exist, but it might have referred to like 5 megawatts. Now it's sort of really the hyperscalers are the massive cloud providers. Amazon, Microsoft, Google. There are Chinese ones, Tencent, Alibaba, organizations like that. Those really, really big companies, big reach. I've probably left a few out, but a hyperscale data center is usually one in which someone like that's deployed at a very large size.
Large size at a rapid pace.
100 megawatts. I mean, the pace actually comes from a different place.
Okay.
It's
So the hyperscale, so I might have got my definitions wrong then. Okay. So the hyperscale is only the size of it, not the speed at which you deliver it.
pretty much.
So hyperscale.
Hyperscale being large and complex are often actually delivered more slowly than sort of small, what we might have actually had in New Zealand in the past, small boutique sites or even modular sites where just you roll a rack in. But the market demands that capacity is made available quickly. Let's say you're training a model. You're a hyperscaler, you're a hyperscale tenant, and you're training a model and your value is getting that model sold to people rapidly. You can't wait for capacity in a data center to come available. You want it to be available as soon as possible so you can start training your model, finish training your model, and sell it to people before somebody else does.
Yes, it's the speed of deployment now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the speed of getting your data center up and running so that you can start using it for the thing that is
So it is
making money for your business.
Yeah, because in the IT world, it's all about the time from conceptualization of an idea to actually delivery of it. Reducing that time frame is where they make their money.
Correct, because then hopefully you're doing it before somebody else does.
Yeah.
And the reason it's larger capacity these days is because the IT systems that are available to support that are simply higher capacity in their own right. Like I said, a rack isn't 2 kilowatts anymore, it's 1,000.
Yeah.
More or less, but very, very dense by comparison. And so sites have become larger because you can put more in a smaller space.
Yeah, and that's only going to get power hungrier and way more compact in the future, isn't it?
It potentially will. I guess there's a point at which that becomes a
Untenable.
bit of a diminishing returon, but I'm not enough of an engineer to understand where that might be.
Yeah, fair enough. I want to ask you a different question. Is New Zealand ready to build hyperscale data centers? Do you reckon we're ready?
I think we are. I think from many perspectives we are absolutely ready. And
Based on what?
I think the capability is here. It's been here for a long time. I mean, there have been large scale, large format data centres in New Zealand forever, 15 years. What there hasn't been is this really, really large scale that we're seeing today elsewhere, because there's been no need to serve global workloads from New Zealand. The data centres here have been serving our own population. But the concepts are not that different, right? You need land, you need power, you need people to design, build, construct, consent, and then operate the facilities. So it's, the concepts are exactly the same.
Yeah.
We need probably more connectivity. The more connectivity you have, the more viable a data centre is. So offshore cables being built to serve international markets, that's important. But, we're ready from an industry perspective, I think.
Yeah, right.
Where perhaps we fall down is that understanding of data centres and kind of the social license that perhaps they do or don't have sometimes. But also the mechanisms kind of in place to support that industry are still designed in New Zealand a little bit for the 10 megawatt kind of site rather than the 100.
Because the 10 megawatt sites are the ones we're used to building, right? Traditionally. Not the 280 megawatts.
No, and they do require a different level of access to all kinds of things. But power is really the big one. Our grid is certainly capable of doing it in many places, but it's been deployed to cater for kind of long-term slow growth of people and industry, as opposed to there being masses of power available.
Sharp needs in particular locations. That's what a data center demands, doesn't it? From a power perspective.
It can do, yes. But I think, for me anyway, and of course I'm biased because I'm in the industry, but
I won't hold that against you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks. But a data center now is one of the few industries, in my view, that can kind of underpin all that investment that's needed in the upstream infrastructure. And that could actually be good for everybody. If we build, for instance, a 200 megawatt data center somewhere, and it starts out as a 10 megawatt data center because the client's not using all of its capability, the 200 megawatt power generation capacity that's been built to support that can be used for everybody else. So we have this situation where actually I think data centers could be a catalyst for all of those other things to be built.
Tell me more. I'm intrigued.
A data center is going to need a lot of power one day.
Agreed. Yeah.
Right?
So you're drawing off the grid.
We're taking from the grid.
Yeah, sure.
But actually, most data centers need guaranteed access to that power, which means they'll sign up to
stable power,
ideally base load. So they'll sign up to stable, long-term agreements. What better to underpin investment by somebody in generation capacity? Right? A data center will use all of the power all of the time. So, a data center can then also sell its product in a way that is much more valuable to its clients than selling the individual electrons that are being generated. So you can take the electron.
So when you say sell its product, what product are we talking about?
The IT capacity.
The IT capacity, yeah.
Whatever the services that are being delivered, the things that you and I are doing with it, right?
Yep.
That's more valuable than electrons. I think, data centers as an industry can kind of be used to underwrite the growth in other places that we need to support them, right? Because
I see where you're going with this.
They're high value long-term tenants, high value long-term users of energy. They're not likely to shut down anytime soon, whether we like it or not, because the amount of data you and I use on a daily basis grows exponentially from one day to the next. And so you're not going to see this kind of situation where a manufacturing plant, for instance, isn't viable anymore and has to shut down because their product can be delivered more cheaply elsewhere.
Yeah.
Right? Data centers will simply...
So on that note, what's your view on nuclear-powered data centers? Have you looked at them? Have you researched them? I've actually invested in nuclear-powered data centers, by the way, just for you and me.
Okay.
And the rest of the world.
So we know what your view is. That's fine. Look, I mean, there have been a lot of examples of this fairly recently where...
Oklo being the key one, I believe, is exploring nuclear-powered data centers.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of activity kind of in the small nuclear reactor space where people are trying to build, small versions to power a single data center. But also there have been examples where old nuclear power stations that were mothballed in the US have been brought back online to supply power rapidly. And in some cases, and in some countries where perhaps nuclear is favoured a bit more, it's a relatively easy thing to do.
Because look at the benefits, right? Benefits are real simple because it comes back to everything you said. Long-term stable power generation.
Yep.
Right? What does nuclear power give you? Long-term stable power generation.
Yep.
With, it's not emitting crazy gases at the same time. You're being still sustainable at the same time. But is it dangerous? Yes, it's really dangerous. Yep. And if things go wrong, they could go really, really wrong. So your risk profile, really high.
Yep.
But if you look at every other need that a data center needs without drawing from the grid, your viable alternative is a nuclear powered data center, isn't it?
I mean, I think potentially it is, right? And there are other benefits for data centers in that scenario, and that data centers bring to that scenario. So, for instance, if you were to build a data center with a small nuclear reactor, a data center facility is by its very nature heavily maintained, well built to withstand all kinds of natural events, and the nuclear would benefit from that. Even just you think about the security around it,
sure,
relative to a standard facility. Now you'd do that with nuclear anyway, I hope.
100%. I don't think you'd want to deploy. You wouldn't want what happened in Brazil where somebody just pulls off a
because they are high. They're low risk but high impact kind of facilities,
yes,
right? If something goes wrong, but they would be perfect for data centers. But actually, back to New Zealand, because I'm in the data center industry, but I'm also a Kiwi, right? New Zealand has this incredible asset in that most of our energy is renewable anyway,
Agreed.
and most of the renewable energy
Yes.
is already base load.
Yeah.
Right. So hydro and geothermal.
Yeah.
Fantastic for data centers.
Yes.
In the same way that nuclear is, because it's long term and stable.
Yep.
Wind and solar are pretty terrible for data centers, to be honest.
Because it's unreliable sources of...
It's unreliable, and you have to then firm it up with something else anyway.
Yep.
So if you're a data center operator, you might buy wind and solar because it is cheap and renewable, fantastic, but you've still got to buy power from somewhere else. I love hydro for data centers personally, hydro and geothermal. The difficulty is that they're hard to place near your data center, so you end up with transmission losses and issues that way. Whereas nuclear, you can put it right next to your data center.
You could put it in the middle of anywhere.
Put it wherever you like.
Yeah.
Because a data center tends to have to be close to users. Now, that's less the case with hyperscale data centers serving offshore clients. You could put one of them anywhere in New Zealand as long as you could connect it to the world.
Yep.
So we could literally look to take our data centers to our energy, right? We could build a new dam somewhere and co-locate it with a data center, or co-locate a data center with it, and we'd have no transmission losses. It'd be really efficient. You could probably use the water for cooling as it generated energy at the same time, because you've got a massive reservoir behind the dam. Yeah. There are some cool things.
They're like quite symbiotic.
Yeah, but you have to look at you have to then be looking at the ecosystem you're trying to build, not just the data center. And there is a way to do that right and a way to do it wrong. That's sort of
just like everything. Yeah.
Just like most things, what else do you need to build around it? So I think, in the countries that support nuclear already and are used to having it around.
Not us, but yes.
Not New Zealand necessarily, although it's not illegal here. Nuclear weapons are. Nuclear generation isn't. It just doesn't have a social license for probably the same reasons. But in the countries that are used to dealing with it, it will be what powers data centers in the future, I suspect. It's very hard to generate enough power any other way, unless you have a resource like the Americans do in Texas, where they can just use gas that's being flared off the oil fields anyway and divert that to generating energy to build data centers. In reality, things like that, you and I today are using data center services, most of which are not here in New Zealand. They're being powered by something like that, right? They're being powered by some form of energy coming from offshore that is or isn't as green as New Zealand. And I guess, again, putting that Kiwi hat on, if I'm using data delivered from a data centre. I'd rather it was coming from a New Zealand one.
Oh, me too.
Where I know where
Yeah.
the energy's come from.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
So I think, while nuclear is an answer, I think thinking really hard about where you put data centres and how you power them and how you build an ecosystem around them is
the way
actually
forward.
the way forward, in particular for New Zealand, where we're never going to compete necessarily on a global scale.
We don't want to compete with America.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, there's no point in trying to even compete with America. What's the point?
No.
It's pointless.
No,
Yeah.
but being able to compete within APAC and deliver some really almost like bespoke, higher quality, higher value services out of New Zealand, using that thing we already have, that green energy, that green grid, in the way that the Nordic region has in Europe, for instance. I think that's our asset. That's our
I
win.
love that vision. I absolutely love that vision. Like that's a really cool vision, Andrew.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really cool vision for New Zealand, I think. You know?
Well, I think so, and it's not just not to take away from the rest of the world, because we're all using those services and they're really useful. But
Yeah.
for New Zealand, given our kind of small nature, the small resources relative to others that we have and that we can bring to bear,
What you're saying is do what we do
data
best.
centers done well
Yeah,
is
exactly.
better than just data centers done big.
Exactly. Yeah. So what you're saying is do what we do really well. Use our environment and our landscape to our advantage and build better data centers.
Yes, and build them in ways that are better connected to the resources we have. You know,
Yes.
data grid, obviously, there's access to all of New Zealand's power, more or less, generated in the bottom of the South Island. So take a data centre there and actually export the energy in the form of data down that cable that's being built over to Australia.
Yeah.
It's sort of it's a better way of doing it for us if we're going to get into that top kind of market. Otherwise, we just serve ourselves with small facilities.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. Okay. So I think we've beaten that the bushel of it. So say I'm a kid from Whangarei today. What do I need to do to get into the data center world?
Take an opportunity, honestly.
Yeah?
Like, it's kind of that simple.
What do I need to do to prepare to get into the data center world? Because it is the future. We all know it's the future.
Yeah, I think there are two versions of that, right? We talked a little bit earlier about the tenant side of things. If you want to get into a tech career and the tenant side of things, learning how to run AI systems, don't talk to me. I've got no idea, right?
You're the builder. That's why we're talking to you.
I'm the guy at the other end of the spectrum worrying about the physical, the site, the hotel. And within that, there are so many transferable skills in the rest of industry, right? So a data center it's a physical building, so you've got to have people with that kind of, you've got to go through the building process for starters. There's a massive piece of construction work, which also includes design, project management, all of those other things that you have to do, QA work, all of the usual stuff that's involved in any construction project. But then you've got to look after it and operate it, right? And to do that, you have to maintain the electrical systems, maintain the HVAC and cooling systems, check everything's working every day. And none of it's complicated, but it's all got to be done. And so I think, the transferable elements in particular from a construction and kind of trade industry to go into data centers are enormous. There was an interview, I think, with Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. I saw a tiny little bit of it a few weeks ago, and he was talking about the white-collar jobs are now the blue-collar jobs, because those jobs that are going to be around for data centers are going to be being a plumber, being an electrician, being an HVAC guy to maintain the physical buildings and all of that infrastructure that's involved in the asset. Whereas AI will take over programming from people.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because it can do it faster and better.
Anybody that provides a service today has got to be worried about AI taking over their jobs. If they're not, it's silly.
Yeah.
Right? It inevitably going to happen, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and I have no idea what the kind of boundaries of that are going to be, but it's going to be a while before AI can fully maintain a facility. And in the end, you still will need a human having some element of investigation or decision making through that
Gary
process.
Vee said the same thing, didn't he? He said go become a plumber. No, go become an electrician. You never go out of work.
No, exactly. And data centers in particular, you think about that transition from 1,000 racks and 100 megawatts up to 200, 300, 500 megawatts in a data center. Someone's got to plumb all of that in from an electrical perspective.
Yeah,
Big pieces of work.
Massive job.
Or work in the factory that prefabricates those systems, right? Because you don't have to necessarily work on site for that.
Because you can containerize it, drop it on site,
containerize it,
connect it.
But somebody's still got to do it somewhere. And maybe some of that gets automated one day. But
automated, still somebody's got to physically do it.
Somebody's still got to be
unless you get humanoids. I've actually explored the humanoid concept. Hey, I've actually been meaning to go. I wouldn't mind getting a humanoid just to do my washing. I don't know. It's $35,000. Literally $35,000. You can buy yourself a humanoid today.
Would you have to tidy up the house before it could make its way around?
Mate, that's a humanoid's job, right?
Yeah.
Pair it with Claude and get some Anthropic AI engine running in the background and go, yep, you mapped my house, now go fucking tidy up after me.
I don't.
There's an idea.
Yeah, this is where I'm not a tech guy, right? I don't even have a Roomba. Like, we got a vacuum cleaner. You go vacuum cleaning, vacuum your house yourself. Like, there's some things I think are best done.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm a sucker for anything tech, digitalize anything, mate. Like that's. Anyways, Andrew, it's been really good. What I want to lastly touch on, I know you're a big advocate of mental health and. You focus a bit on your mental health outside of work, and how do you maintain balance between personal life, work life, maintain a good healthy lifestyle, manage your mental health?
Yeah, better some days than others, I'd say.
Just like all of us, mate.
Yeah, I mean, I've tried really hard to, in particular, going into running my own business. That's given me the opportunity to do that a little bit differently for myself, and put myself on gardening leave for a day every now and then. That's been fun, but for a long time I've been into running.
Right.
I've run half marathons. I ran my first full marathon a couple of years ago. Probably never do it again.
Yeah, right.
But I love the idea, especially as I've travelled a lot for work. I love the idea of just wherever I go, taking my shoes with me, going for a run, looking around. It's a great way to explore, if nothing else. And it's easy. Like, I can pack it into a suitcase. I don't have to think about anything else. Just take my shoes with me, go for a walk, go for a run. And for me, like, exercising while I'm working, it's an opportunity to meditate for 3/4 of an hour and just think about something else for a bit, or work through a problem that I have at work and finish my run, and suddenly I've got the solution.
Right.
So I think, like, for me, it's a small thing. It's simple. It's not a big investment of my time or energy or anything like that. 5Ks, go out. You challenge yourself a little bit, and you realise you can do some stuff that's hard. I think that's kind of another thing for me, is actually I want to do this thing. I want to finish. That's why I quite like the races. Like doing a half marathon, you do it with a bunch of other people. I think for me, just something like that's a bit of an outlet for all of the
out of the data center world and the construction world, and you've been on 24/7.
Yeah, just being able to get out
to
get out and do something completely different. I mean, I've said a couple of times I'm not really a tech guy. I also enjoy gardening, and I've got a boat, but it's like an old 1992 stroke. It's not a complicated fancy boat. It's just a cheap trailer boat, and we just go out and we cruise around the harbour for a bit and maybe catch a fish.
Yeah, nice.
So I think things like that, where you consciously take yourself away from your work for a bit. I mean, obviously you end up thinking about it, but sometimes you solve a problem when you kind of give your brain a bit of space.
Take yourself away from that environment that you're in constantly, right? That's the key. Now, Andrew, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've learned a thing or two about data centers, and I think it's an amazing world out there, and it's going to be a beautiful future for New Zealand upcoming, and you're going to be a massive part of it, hopefully.
Well, I hope so. Yeah. Thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it as well, actually. It's nice to talk about these things. I'm more than happy to answer any future questions on.
Yep. So if any of you guys have any questions about data centers, reach Andrew on his LinkedIn. Yep, easy. Drop him a DM. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But apart from that, thank you, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure.
You too. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Andy.
Cheers.